Unlock the door to mystery with one very short story. The Micro Podcast filled with morally complex characters, twists you won't predict, and endings you won't forget. Every episode is a brief, intense journey, perfect for listeners who crave mystery, intrigue, and stories that leave you thinking long after the tale ends. Today's episode begins now. The Tragic Bullet. She had eyes that carried too much weight, the kind that wanted to forget but didn't know how. A handsome, older woman draped in dark clothes and those slick, fashionable sneakers. I didn't know her name. In my head, she was Gladys. Just like another Gladys I knew back in the day. Same sad, haunted eyes. I raised my glass and gave her a nod. "You look like someone who could use a distraction." She looked over, a ghost of a smirk playing on her lips. She sipped her drink like it owed her something. "That obvious?" she said. I leaned in, just a hair. Only to someone who spent a few too many nights watching people try to outdrink regret. A small chuckle escaped her. Not forced, but not real either. She was a woman searching for a way out. "Lucky for you," I said, tilting my glass. "I tell a hell of a story." Gladys sighed, elbow on the bar, fingers tracing the rim. "Go on then. Distract me." I took a slow sip, letting the burn settle. "I just wrapped up a strange case. Saddest one I'd seen in years." "You're a detective?" she asked, her voice low. I nodded. Gladys inhaled, a flicker of anxiety in her eyes, though she tried to hide it. "You think sadness is a distraction?" She raised a brow, curiosity fighting its way through the fog. I smiled. "Depends on whose sadness we're talking about." Something shifted behind her expression. Barely. A twitch. Maybe fear. Maybe recognition. Maybe both. Two seniors, a man and a woman, found dead. In bed. She blinked. Lovers? Yeah. They were in their 70s, both with Alzheimer's. But hers was worse. They used to be married years back. Life split them. Somehow they found their way back. They didn't remember the divorce, didn't remember the decades in between. Just each other, like they never left. That revelation hit her hard. I could tell, despite the smile she struggled to maintain. "But," I said, "she had remarried, and the current husband didn't like her sneaking off for playtime with the ex." Gladys's fingers stopped moving around the rim of her glass. I continued my story. One day her husband came home early and found them curled up, dreaming old dreams. He must have suspected something for a while, because he walked in with a gun in his hand. But at the moment of truth, he couldn't do it. Gladys nodded slowly, like she understood the pain. So he told her the truth, bluntly. She wasn't married to the man in bed beside her. She was his wife now. He told them to stop dreaming, that Alzheimer's was their reality. Gladys swallowed hard, but they didn't get it. They both looked at the husband like he was the crazy one and told him to get out, even begged him. Gladys leaned slightly to the left. She reached for her drink again. It steadied her. Frustrated and flustered, the husband walked out. She nodded and scanned the bar. She took note of the people around her and breathed in a long, slow breath. closing her eyes for a moment before turning her gaze back to me. She didn't notice how I grabbed her purse and slipped it behind my back. I continued my story. And that's when someone else showed up. A woman. Gladys blinked twice. It turned out the old man hadn't remarried, but he did have a girlfriend. Suspicious, jealous. She walked in on the couple, gun in hand, oblivious to their condition. Without hesitation, she fired twice and ended a tragic love story. The atmosphere in the bar seemed to shift then as the music from the loudspeakers paused. The low hum of chatter filled the void, along with the clinking of glasses and bottles. The bartender rang out last call. The woman who killed the two seniors sat on the bed and cried, I said. She thought about making it a threesome but didn't have the courage for that. Gladys raised her glass. No more drink. Another disappointment in her life. What happened to her? She asked, her voice barely audible. I leaned in closer, my voice low even. She went to a bar, started talking to a man who tells good stories. She stopped breathing just for a second. The man you killed, Anderson, his kids live halfway around the world. They hired me to keep tabs. They were worried you were in it for the money. Truth is, I think you really loved him. Gladys opened her mouth, closed it again, and nodded. They asked me to set up cameras in and outside the house, just in case. She blinked, slow and unsteady. When Mildred... I paused. Gladys looked at me, confused. Mildred was the woman in bed with Anderson, his ex-wife. Gladys nodded, her eyes darting all around the room, probably planning her escape. I was watching the camera feed when Mildred's husband came in with his gun and walked off. I sped to the house, keeping an eye on things via an app on my phone. I saw you walk in, saw you pull the trigger, saw you fall apart after. You were leaving the driveway by the time I arrived. I followed you here. Gladys reached for her purse and was startled to discover I had moved it. She wasn't shooting her way out of this one. If you knew, she said, why the hell didn't you just cuff me right away? I'm not that kind of detective. It was then that she noticed the red and blue lights bouncing off the walls of the bar. Two uniformed cops stepped through the door. They recognized me, and I nodded toward Gladys. A private detective, she whispered, stalling me until the police came. I nodded. The officers read Gladys her rights. She didn't argue, didn't resist. She reached out for my hands and held tight until they cuffed her. I watched them walk her out. She didn't look back. Thanks for listening to One Very Short Story. If today's story hooked you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us grow and keeps the suspense coming your way. Want to dive deeper? Check out the podcast description to learn more about the show and explore special offers from our sponsor. Until next time, keep dodging bullets and stay safe in the shadows.